Hello, thank you for having me on this podcast. I know that we were talking about the student constitutional rights at school settings. So, talking about this, I know that school campuses they're allowed to have students express their First Amendment. However, based on allowing them have their First Amendment, just like in the Tinker and DeMoss case, the superintendent ruled that the students are in school to learn and not to teach. This means that they are allowed to have freedom of speech or expression that does not disrupt the learning environment. So, some differences in the school settings that we can see is that public schools they they need to follow the federal laws and the governments of whatever is in that state just because they are funded by the government, so they will follow everything. Then we have the charter schools, they can be more lenient on the laws since they receive partial funding from the government. Then private schools do not receive government funding at all and rely on donations, which means that they don't always have to follow the government laws put in place. Virtual schools still need to follow the educational laws within that state. So, social media posts can be a way for students to express themselves. However, we need to make a clear boundary to what is acceptable and not acceptable to post without violating their constitutional rights. In the state of New Jersey, there are specific legal decisions put in place to protect students from social media posts and in person incidents with other students. Here in New Jersey, the New Jersey's Anti Bullying Bill of Rights Act defines harassment, intimidation, and bullying, or HIB, for short, as any gesture that, like verbal or physical act, electronic and or written communication that occurs once or multiple times due to perceived characteristics. Some of these characteristics are race, nationality, religion, sexual orientation, gender, physical or mental disabilities, and there's way more. But this can take place on either school property, off school grounds, on a school bus, during school functions, and things like that, and even off school grounds. Social media is a way for students to express themselves, but some boundaries need to be put in place to promote a safe learning environment to help students focus on learning. Just as we see in a legal case that occurred in 2007, which was the Morris and Frederick case, where a student held a banner at a school event promoting the use of illegal substances. The Supreme Court ruled that the principle for taking away the banner did not violate the student's First Amendment because substan- it will substantially disrupt the educational process for other students. Censoring things Censoring things students want to display, whether a banner or on social media posts, is important to not disrupt the learning environment or peer pressure students into doing things that they might not want to do. Another case that we see is the Hazelwood and Kuhlmeyer case from 1988. So, this case is about a group of students who wanted to publish an article on teen pregnancies and the impact of divorce. The principal deletes portions of the article that are inappropriate to publish in the newspaper. The Supreme Court sided with the principal for this case. The time of this case was in the 80s, like I mentioned, and so internet was not as popular and newspapers were still a more efficient way for readers to find out the latest information based on current events happening. Today, social media is a main source for a lot of people to find their information. Just as the Supreme Court sided with the school that certain content cannot be distributed in school newspaper and no student constitutional rights were violated, is the same way social media posts can be censored and allows students to voice their opinions while being appropriate for school settings. I believe having boundaries in place can respect the constitutional rights of students while also protecting all students from harassment, intimidation, and bullying that can occur if social media posts are not monitored. Students are able to have their freedom of speech in a safe and inclusive way while without being traumatized and other students without other students having hurtful actions towards them. Thank you.